I guess it isn't fair to blame you. I kept pouring myself into your palms even as I watched all that I was leak through your fingers. By Lauren E. Bowman. Ah, bust down, come round. I'm happy to be back with that sound. Yo, welcome to the Black Sublime podcast. This is your host, A. White. This is your motherfucking host, A. White. I am so happy to be here. I'm happy to have my shit together. I'm happy to have my shit together. Say it with me, I'm happy to have my shit together. I was listening to last week's episode of the podcast, and obviously I listened to the content a billion times. I listened to everything I do. I have to do the editing, I have to promote, I have to make videos of everything. So I hear this shit a lot. But I felt really empowered by it. I don't know. I felt it was really good for me. So I just wanted to thank everybody for listening to that and giving me an outlet to kind of do that. It was really something special for me. So thank you. And I did want to stay on the theme this week. I wanted to stay on silence. I wanted to stay on that. I think. Do I want to talk shit before? You know I'm good for that. You know I love to do a little bit of shit talking before I get into the shits. This week has been light on the shit. I actually have been focusing on the fundamentals of being. I've been focusing on the fundamentals of being, of just meditating, trying to rest, trying to balance work with family life, try to pursue a little bit of a little light work, nothing crazy, a little light. Should I call it romance? I should just call it social, going outside. I went outside. I'm not quite in the field, but I'm outside. But I'm not outside, so it's good to be able to do that, and I feel pretty good. I feel pretty well rested. Someone, I guess this is a little shit. It's light though. It's nothing crazy. Someone that I used to talk to hit me up on Grindr, and I just laughed. But I literally laughed. Like, I said ha 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 ha, and I was just like, I thought you weren't talking to the kid. And that's always really, I shouldn't say gratifying, but it's interesting how people how people come back, circle the block after mistreating you or not getting what they wanted from you initially. And that's really the shittiest part of my week, or like the most, yucky or icky part of my week. It's been good for me this week. I do hear a little bit of feedback, so I'm hoping that that's not in the episode, or maybe perhaps I'm just hearing things, but I hope that doesn't distract from quality at all for you all. To do a little recap for folks who didn't hear last week's episode, it was a personal episode, and this one is personal as well, but it's a bit different. Last week I talked about, it was titled The Craft and the Toll of Silence, and I talked about what I had learned but what I had witnessed from elders in my family, specifically my grandmother, about keeping secrets. And I talked mostly about the experience, my experience of her experience, how that affected my maturation and my coming to be. I alluded to some things that I felt could use a little mention, a little its own spotlight. So I wanted to talk about that a little bit, and honestly, I'm going to try not to do too much. It's going to be a quick episode, and I'm also going to try not to do too much explaining, but I think I do need to start with some context. I think I need to just make sure everybody's on the same page. Last week I talked about this a lot from a race and gender standpoint. I didn't go heavy on the gender, but I did introduce it because I was talking about my grandmother and talking about how I felt and how I sort of straddled, or how I straddled, we'll call it both, but maybe just two social functions that are related to gender, and how keeping secrets related to what I understood the feminine social function to be, and this sort of hesitance or the danger associated with me flexing strength and power being linked to the masculine social function. I realized, though, that in my life and the life of people that I've been close to, yes, we learn the art or the craft of keeping secrets from our elders. And it's not just women, right? I mean, men keep secrets, and it's a different function. I mean, men keep their own secrets, but I'm talking about keeping other secrets primarily. Queer people, we keep secrets, and the quiet and the silence has been so dangerous for us. The kind of theme of the last week's episode was, I wonder how much damage keeping other secrets has done to the bodies of my elders. I have I'll call it a privilege, but let's just say perspective maybe, of watching people that I love age and seeing that the silence has not paid off. So I started to wonder how much of the health issues and how much of the physical and emotional pain is related to that. If that idea holds, the question is, how much suffering are we in for as queer people for having kept our own secrets, and for having kept our own quiet, for having to understand love? And this is not everybody's life, and what I'll say is there is a generational gap here, because things are different now from what they were when I was younger, from when I was a teenager. But there are so many people, and I'm not even talking about closetedness. I'm not talking about the secrets kept of you all being in the closet. That also is part of it. But I'm talking about being in relationships where you are not loved out loud. Learning to accept not being loved out loud. Not being loved in the daylight. Not being loved, in public. And sometimes it's more complicated than someone holding your hand in public. Sometimes it's more complicated than sharing a kiss with a partner in public. It can be just simply talking about the dreams that you and your partner have, the problems you and your partner have or are working through with your friends, with your family, right? And then there is the public affection part. I do watch a lot of people that I know in relationships, and I do see how there is we'll just call it modesty. There's a modesty, a hesitation to be maximally affectionate. in public with their partner, and I'm not talking about just fucking in public. I think ironically there's space for sex. I have seen people engage in sexual acts, but I don't see as much affection, as many displays of affection, particularly when you start to introduce variables like class and race. So when you talk about the working or, middle or aspirational class of black people, black queer folks, there's not, and I'm speaking anecdotally, right? Anecdotally? I guess I'm speaking anecdotally. That's how you would say that. I'm speaking anecdotally. But I watch the history of having been loved in the dark transform the body. I watch the history of having been loved in the dark live in the hesitation in grabbing a partner's hand in public, or hugging and kissing in public, or crying in your partner's embrace in public. I have seen that. I have seen the history of being loved in the dark, or the history of being taught to love by people that maybe shouldn't have been doing the teaching. I'll say that. I see that play out a lot in our bodies. And I the last relationship, I'm not a relationship girl. Like, I love relationships, sure, but I'm not the type to hop from relationship to relationship. But I can reflect on my last relationship, the last significant one, and I recalled how we might hold a hand, hold each other's hand, but when we walked in the street, it looked like maybe close friends. It didn't look like lovers. It looked like close friends. And then as the day became the night, there might have been more room for that. But we lived with so much trauma of being loved either in the dark or being loved on the side, being loved with very little, with a hint of secrecy. I think about the culture at large, and of course I'm talking about black queer culture, right? I think about how much shame is in the aesthetic. I think about the conservatism that exists that's linked to said shame. And the shame is not ours. The shame is something that that has been painted onto us, that's been carved into us, infused into our blood from people that hate us. It is not something that we should own. But it comes out in our love. It comes out when it's time to love. I think about how that silence is branded onto us via shame, and how even when we are in love, it can be hard to break it. And in my personal life, I think about, in my personal life, I look for somebody who would dare to love me out loud. And, maybe this is me being too romantic or too brazen or whatever, but I like the show. I do. Like, recently somebody asked me something, like, what should they do, like, to basically make something up to me? And I was like, I want drama. I mean, I didn't say the word drama, but I was like, I want a big gesture that makes me feel confident. Because if not, I'm going to ignore it. I want the drama. I do because I'm not gonna be loved in the I'm not gonna be loved, you know, on mute. That's not gonna happen. I want my things. I want the drama. Um, but I think about. I mean, I've had this experience, and I honestly, it was one of the most devastating, or I would say incapacitating aspects of me learning to love as a queer person. I had so much. I've grown so accustomed. I'd grown so accustomed to the dark. To the point where, what I don't remember the exact, Batman thing, but I had grown so accustomed to the dark that it was like I was raised in it. I had no I thought it was normal. I thought it was normal for a long time to not talk to your friends about your partner, to, you know, not talk to your family about anything going on in your romantic life, to, just look like close friends when you are out and not partners, to be aware of how people are perceiving you. I thought it was fine to, meet somebody at a club and maybe not talk to them for a while, play it cool, to allow them to just see you when in their free time, to be dull about their affection for you, to be dull about their attraction to you until it was time to have sex. But and before it's time to have sex, they're gonna be dull about their desire, maybe out of fear, a fear of rejection, or fear of living the truth of the queer identity, right? Of romance. Because that's the thing. Romance is scarier than sex. That's why, for me, this is a tangent, but I'm going to go there because fuck it, be having fun. That's why I take I think about homo-romantic people. When somebody, the gays are always talking about, oh, that so-and-so is gay, so-and-so is gay, they not gay, they straight, they bi, whatever. I don't take any of that shit seriously. I look for homo-romantic people. I have slept with straight people that I know are straight. Like, I know they're straight. I know they are straight. And there are straight people that I know I could sleep with right now. and not even be like I snatched that up. That's why it's like some of y'all need to be quiet. But it's like just I could do that in no time. Just give, and I know that. But me sleeping with him, if he's never going to love me, it doesn't matter. If this person is never going to love me, he's not straight. I mean, he's not gay. And it's not relevant. That's the thing. It's like, but we are so used to being loved in the dark that we can accept, like, there is a thrill. There are fantasies associated with people whose bodies you can have. Like, there's an overvaluation of the sexual component of interaction. It's like, if this person is can never love you, who cares if you can suck their dick? I mean, dicks are easy to suck, like, it's nothing. It's nothing, and like, his girl may be mad, but that's her problem. I mean, and I shouldn't say that. I'm being stupid. It's not the case that it's actually nothing. There is a value to an arousal pattern, right? Like, arousal patterns are things. But for me, I've always valued the homo romantic. And if it's not homo romantic, I think just because of my experience, I'm like, I don't give a fuck about them. It's nothing to me. And this is why I didn't want to go on a tangent, because it is one. But I think about all of us that have been loved in this way, that have been loved with, what is left over from the violence of the day. That is a quote from a poem I wrote that's actually going to close this episode out. But and I wonder not just about how it affects our capacity to love, but our health. Our health. I don't think I was so sick in my 20s. Like I mean, it's crazy. I was so ill. And I think there are so many elements to that. I think I was working in a toxic environment. I was unhappy in that environment, but I was in these relationships that were so toxic. Like, they were so unloving. And in a lot of them were characterized by this loving me in the dark type of thing, or loving me on terms that were not like universally positive terms, that were not public terms. Like, people would be like, oh, I know this is your friend, or this is your best friend, or whatever. But it would be like, when it was time to, do something in public that showed the true value of the relationship, or the alleged value of the relationship, it was not there. And I lived in that. I lived in that, and I was sick all the fucking time. So I think, and then you could take into account of the majority of the queer experience that people have. People have this closeted experience, this panic and anxiety around being sexual. And I will say that I've said in the past that I didn't struggle with being closeted as other people have, and that is largely true. But I did have a lot of anxiety around sex, associated with other traumas, but also, I was terrified of HIV, right? Terrified. Like, absolutely terrified. And I had two experiences where two different people had tried to give me HIV, which is a story I will tell another time. I might tell that in the next episode. But just the sheer anxieties around sex, the public nature of it, the accepting much, much less than what we deserve of it, just all the secrets that we kept. And I remember feeling like, it was good. It was a good trait that I had, that I would never tell anybody anything. It's true. Like, there was a guy that I slept with that actually will I call him straight? I don't know if he's straight. I mean, I would say he's like, he's straight, but has the, like, bi. I guess that would be a pan or something like that. I don't know where I'd put him, but he did have genuine feelings for me, so that would make it not by my definition straight. But I'd known him for a long time, and I was like, well, what if people find out? And he was like, I don't care. Like, I don't, if people find out. And then for me, I was just like, I was stressed. Like, I was stressed. I was like, wait. No. You're supposed to be the one that wants to stay in the dark. Like, you're not supposed to be the one that's taking us out of the dark. Like, this is not how this is supposed to go. I'm supposed to be the one that's like, oh, we should tell people or whatever. And you're the one that's like, let's do it. And I'm like, nah, chill. It's very much chill on that. I had grown so accustomed to the dark that when I met someone who didn't mind the light, I was like, nah, bitch, we gonna stay in the dark. Like, and that's terrible. I was young though. I was that was a long time ago. But I just think about that. I think about that in this dynamic, or in situations, this context. Aside from the sexuality, I also wanted to mention class and the silencing of of poor people. I thought about, and I don't know if it's worth going through the entire thought process, because I thought about how if I needed to do this in this episode, if I needed to link black, like, race to class in this episode, because everybody should already know by now that racial capitalism is the dynamic. That is the structure. And obviously, like, we've spoken about, I've done an episode on this, so I don't really feel like I need to. But one thing that I wanted to say about the relationship is that, for black people, there are a, how can I start this? Injustice sometimes lies in the assumptions that occur when thinking about a certain class of people or a certain group of people. So, a lot of people think about it as, being denied a right. Like, if you are black and you're denied entry somewhere, or you're denied access to a resource, then that's the only way for you to suffer injustice. When a lot of injustice happens before that, where you just are not assumed, it's not assumed that you want something that is generally believed to be a human desire, right? Or that you don't deserve something that is generally believed to be necessary for human flourishing. Or, this mythology, the assumption or lack thereof, it occurs before the denial, before the neglect. There is an assumption about what you are capable of, what you want, what you need. The sort of fundamental range of sensual or sensory experience, and that's a lot of the fundamental, or, like, I want to say a priori, but, like, a lot of the sort of raw material of the injustice that we experience. It happens before the outright denial of access or whatever. So in regular life, when a lot of this language is like microaggression, this shit, is because there's either an assumption that you do not have or want something, or lack of an assumption that you want some said thing, or that you have a certain experience, or that you heard this, or that you know this, or that you feel pain or are affected by something. Why wouldn't you be affected by? And I have this, and it's sad, because this lack of assumption is something that is the raw material of dehumanization. It's the raw material of it. And it happens all the fucking time. Why wouldn't I want, fair access to so-and-so? If something bad happened to me, why wouldn't I be in pain? Why wouldn't it be a distraction? Why wouldn't it hurt? Why would I be unaffected? There are these the set of mythologies that racist people have used. That black people don't feel pain, that we are physiological, or don't feel pain to the same degree, that we're not incapacitated by pain to the same degree, that we're physiologically more apt to labor, to physical labor, to tolerate deprivation, or to tolerate a lack of fundamental resources. And I repeat this because I think most of us already know this. I repeat this because similar beliefs exist around poor people. This idea that poor people can tolerate uh, a lack that is greater than what we can tolerate, and that there is a predisposition of some sort to this life. With poor people, a lot of times in this country, the belief is an ethical one, or ethical, moral, psychological one, that there's some kind of depravity. There's just some kind of moral depravity to to this person or to these people, that somehow they deserve this, and that their composition or constitution is more appropriate for this life than others. And that's a similar type of way to deal with the cognitive dissonance that you experience, or really a set of beliefs to facilitate exploitation. And then I do this because I also want to link it to the queerness, right? This depravity. So we've gone from, the dehumanizing mythologies, which only serve to create a class of people that could be exploited, to tie it then to the pre-existing exploitation of poor people, then to introduce a sense of depravity to it, and then to extend that depravity to queer people, and the fear that their depravity is somehow contagious or it can reveal your own depravity. The dismantling or just the disruption of the role heterosexuality plays in supporting the current socioeconomic system. And, I say it this way, and this is not what I want to do. I don't really want to academically go through this. But I want to say that I did it because through every kind of technology, through the dehumanizing technology and the depravity technology, the moral and ethical one, we are being silenced and muted, right? We are being muted is probably a better word. Suppressed, or whatever the word is. And we can grow accustomed to it, and it lives in our bodies. And it takes more than just understanding it to free yourself. It takes a practice of speaking, a practice of expression. It takes an avid practice of expression to, at the very least, at the beginning of the journey is the expression. This is part of why art is so important. This is part of why, culture is so important. Because we need to express as a first step to free our bodies from certain torment, right? I mean, the torment exists either directly through the exploitation or through the oppression, but then it exists indirectly or as side effects to a lifelong suppression or mitigation of our voice, of our living in our bodies. So I really wanted to say that, and there are things I wanted to tell specific stories about the medical establishment as it affects my life. I don't think I'll do that today. I think we can actually stop here. I feel that this topic can be hard because, and I'm trying not to get too emotional, there are reasons to be silent. I don't want to gaslight anybody and make people feel like you should express and that it's risk-free. And I don't mean just risk-free for yourself. I mean risk-free for, or risky for your understanding of who you are, the risks posed to your family, the risks posed to your ability to survive in this world. Like, there are real material risks for marginalized people for expressing. And more than the threat of the external world, I have found that the most destabilizing effects of expressing myself have come from within. The ego death, the acknowledging the power of fear, acknowledging how afraid I actually am. How afraid. That was one of the saddest things to me over the past 2 years, is the realization of how afraid I actually am. I thought I was brave because I had survived so much, and I speak my mind, and I know when to speak, and I'm okay with being violent, and I'm not really okay with being violent because there are people, but I'm okay with being aggressive. So it's like, I felt that I was brave. I thought that I was brave. And, being afraid doesn't mean you're not brave. But if you had asked me 3 years ago, what's my chief motivation, I wouldn't have said fear. Or if you had asked me how motivated by fear I am, I wouldn't have said a lot. But maybe 2 years ago, I realized, I was like, yo, you live with a lot of fear. A lot. And you don't even know where the fear came from. You don't even remember the beginning of it, but you live with it. And when I was contemplating silence, I was realizing that, oh yeah, my fear and my silence are twins. My fear and my silence are on, different sides of the same coin. They are, they feed and nurture each other. They turn around and become the other. Which is why I felt like sharing this thought. And with that, I will leave you. I am going to play a song. Well, actually, it's not. It's a poem song. So this is, I don't love this performance of it. I performed it better live, but this is a studio recording of the poem that I wrote that I titled my first project off of, Conventional Love. My favorite part of this song this piece is as my background ad libs. I had to make up some melodies on the spot. I think I did one take of this, or 1 or 2 takes of the backgrounds. The producer at the time didn't understand, who I love. I mean, we did a great project together. I really do. I thank him. I'm still grateful for him. And he was like, I don't get it. Like, I had guitar. I had this guitarist who was amazing, play the chords for this song that was coming after it. And I was like, I want to recite the poem, and then I want to sing behind it. And he was just like, how will that work? Because the singing and the poem and this and that. But I had a vision. And I needed to pick melodies to really work with the chord progression, but stand out of the way of the reading of the poem. So I came up with a melody that to this day I'm like, that could have been part of like a pre-chorus or a bridge. Like, I should take this shit and make it into a bridge, because it's a really good bridge. And with that, I'll leave you. This is called Conventional Love.
We often build our fantasies with the worst of us, with what is left over from the violence of the day, with a self-esteem cracking under the pestle of petulant masculinity, and a mortar of constant isolation. Fantasies, they grow on the chilly breath of the whimpering child, feed on the raging blood of the loveless, and educate themselves from the dried white eyes of the abandoned. See, I stagger through my existence, frantically grounding here and there, fantasizing my life with you only you could love me with your masculine fervor, then maybe others could. Then maybe I could see your love, your stale, conventional love might make me special enough to be adored. Special enough to be cared for. Special enough not to be ignored. But special enough not to be special at all. Just normal. Normal enough to accomplish being seen. But now that I'm welcome, is there anything for me here? Can't my life make like the movies? Can't I mimic the fairy tale? Your love, your stale, conventional love has rendered me blind. And no longer can I see myself, but ironically still, no longer can I see you.